Come run the hidden pine trails in the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you, and for once never wonder what they are worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends, and we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. Pocahontas sings this in the 1995 Disney movie named after her, which grossed $346 million worldwide. Just the year before it, it had been yet another Disney movie, The Lion King, which grossed even more worldwide, $987 million. And in it, we hear Mufasa, Simba's dad, say, "Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures from the crawling ant to the leaping antelope. You must," he says, "take your place in the circle of life." This is the earth-centered message, humanity de-centered and brought into right relationship with the rest of nature. In 1995, millions of people saw it on the big screen, played out. Now, 1995 also happened to be the year that the earth-centered sensibility of Pocahontas' Colors of the Wind song received official expression in our Unitarian Universalist faith community. That was the year that General Assembly delegates from congregations everywhere voted to add a sixth source, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Now, it is an integral part of our faith community. Hard to imagine our faith without it. But 1995 has yet another fascinating coincidence for us to consider. It was the year that a social science researcher, Richard Wayne Lee of the University of Alabama in Huntsville, finished writing his seminal paper entitled "Strained Bedfellows: Pagans, New Agers, and Starchy Humanists in Unitarian Universalism." Published the following year, the paper would describe the spread of earth-centered spirituality in our congregations and also the resistance it encountered, why some folks balked, even as General Assembly delegates were officially confirming the validity of earth-centered spirituality as a valid source for us, and millions of children around the world, they're singing Colors of the Wind from the Disney movie. 1995 was a revelatory year. In today's message, I want to explore this story in more detail. What is earth-centered spirituality after all? Why did some people balk at it and perhaps still do? And where are we now? Where do we go from here? We're going to ask these questions, see where they take us this morning. Let's begin with the insight that earth-centered spirituality is a big family of traditions. Besides Native American spirituality, we are talking modern witchcraft / Wicca and neo-paganism. We're talking contemporary feminist theology and neo-shamanistic groups and certain New Age movements. We're talking about spiritual perspectives from environmental / sustainability movements like deep ecology. It is a big family. Lots of member traditions which at times can seem profoundly different. But even so, the key similarities are there to prove that they belong to the same family. One of these key similarities is the conviction that nature is the truest Bible. Natural cycles and processes are sources of spiritual truth. In the West, a key voice here comes from philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau in the 18th century, who made it his epistemological first principle to go to nature, to find one's happiness and one's authentic heart, to find one's sanity, to find one's bliss. That is why we hear Pocahontas sing, "Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you, and for once never wonder what they're worth. Come run, come taste, come roll." Do that because of the second key similarity, which is the experience of animism and the explanation of that through pantheism. There's a scene in the movie when John Smith has a very interesting experience, and he says to Pocahontas, "Pocahontas, that tree is talking to me." Pocahontas says, "Then you should talk back." And then Grandmother Willow, the tree, she says this. She says, "Don't be frightened, young man. My bark is worse than my bite." And then Pocahontas says, "Say something." John Smith says, "What do you say to a tree?" Pocahontas says, "Just say anything." Animism attributes consciousness and intent to all the forms that air, fire, water, and earth take. Henry David Thoreau, one of our Unitarian Universalist ancestors, professed animism. When he once said this, he said, "I was so distinctly made aware of the presence of something kindred to me, even in scenes where we are accustomed to call wild and dreary, even those scenes. And also, that the nearest of blood to me and humanness was not a person or a villager, that I thought no place could ever be strange to me again." Have you ever experienced a tree listening? Animism says that they do. You can indeed tell Grandmother Willow anything you want. Now, as a side note, I was speaking with someone during social hour about this particular piece of the sermon, and they said, yes, they do speak to trees. And they have spoken to trees for many, many years and had never really heard anything back until one time. They did hear something back. They really believe that they heard something back from the trees. The trees said, "You wouldn't understand." Animism. Animism. Speak to the trees and they will speak back in one way or another. And pantheism helps to explain why. Pantheism says that the divine is nature and nature is the divine. All things are animated by the same sacredness, and sacredness is in all things, not just human beings. The sacredness of the sound we heard a moment ago, that sacredness flowing in all things, in all things. Ralph Waldo Emerson, yet another Unitarian Universalist ancestor, proclaims pantheism when he says, "Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of universal being circulate through me. I am part and parcel of God." Which leads to the third family resemblance that helps us to identify various disparate traditions as earth-centered. Polytheism. Belief in many gods, not just one. Belief in male and female gods both, and not just male. Wikipedia, which here focuses on polytheism in a pagan context, gives us a taste of the nuances involved, and there are many. One view in the pagan community, says Wikipedia, is that these polytheistic deities are not viewed as literal entities, but as Jungian archetypes or other psychological constructs that exist in the human psyche. Now, others adopt the belief that the deities have both a psychological and external existence. Many pagans believe adoption of a polytheistic worldview would be beneficial for Western society, replacing the dominant monotheism they see as innately repressive. In fact, many American neo-pagans first came to their adopted faiths because it allowed a greater freedom, diversity, and tolerance of worship among the community. Most pagans adopt an ethos of unity in diversity regarding their religious beliefs, and that is Wikipedia. Besides these beliefs, additional family resemblances between differing earth-centered traditions can be found in such things as the employment of magic and spells, an emphasis on ritual, like our calling of the quarters ritual that we saw just a moment ago, and also an enjoyment of festivals that are seasonal in nature, such as Wicca's Wheel of the Year, Beltane, Midsummer, Lammas, Mabon, Samhain, Yule, Imbolc, and the festival that's right around the corner, Ostara, which happens to be a time of great fertility and is celebrated by the ritual of egg decorating. Bunnies are also popular. Ostara, where the word Easter happens to come from, which is very interesting when you start thinking about it, and that is a different sermon, which you will hear Easter Sunday. Be here. For now, having laid out some of the essentials of earth-centered spirituality, let's turn the focus to Richard Wayne Lee's mid-1990s paper entitled Strained Bedfellows, Pagans, New Agers, and Starchy Humanists in Unitarian Universalism. A picturesque title. Would you agree? A picturesque title. Diversity in the Unitarian Universalist bed, and it is not a good feeling. It is not a good feeling. One way he illustrates this is through articles in The World, our denominational magazine, together with letters to the editor. For example, a 1992 article about a UU witch and another entitled Celebrating the Goddess Within. It provoked the following reader responses. Here's one. Once I was proud to be a Unitarian Universalist, and I could not understand why others thought us silly. But after reading the articles on a self-proclaimed witch and a commentary on worshiping the goddess within, I not only understand, I agree. I am disturbed by the increase in mysticism and New Age philosophy in our churches. There are limits to tolerance, the writer concludes. And then here's the next letter to the editor. I am convinced, or rather concerned, I am concerned about a revival of witches and witchcraft, even in the earliest meaning of wise woman/healer. UUs are often considered a far-out sect. Let's not give our critics a chance to level more derision our way. Now, these are voices from a while ago. What's valuable to me about the Strained Bedfellows article is that it preserves them all in a kind of literary amber. Literary amber. The struggle of what an evolving religious movement looks like is preserved. We can see it. Why is there the feeling that an earth-centered tradition like Wicca is silliness? Why the shame? Why the concern? Perhaps it comes from a sense that the earth-centered focus is faddish, flighty. One of my colleagues, Reverend Roberta Finkelstein, she admits that when the proposal to add the sixth source initially came up, she voted against it, thinking, you can't add a sentence for every fad that comes along. Our source's statement, she said, is a carefully crafted consensus statement after all. It ought not to be messed with casually. In addition to this concern about faddishness comes the larger concern that earth-centered traditions are regressive. As Richard Wayne Lee himself says, oriented to scientific technical rationality, UU humanists naturally reacted with particular hostility to movements associated with pre-modernity and ones that included occult elements like neo-paganism and the New Age. Is the earth-centered focus faddish? Are its related traditions regressive and out of sync with what we know about human psychology and the world in general? The Richard Wayne Lee article doesn't offer any answers here, but it does remind us that as a religious movement, we have had strained bedfellows moments before. We've had those before. Leading transcendentalists, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he reminds us, resigned from the Unitarian ministry in 1832, complaining that the denomination's excessive emphasis on reason had turned it into a religion of dried bones and a thin porridge of pale negations. Ugh. That's Emerson. He brings the power. Emerson, he wanted to bring the Unitarians of his day into something far richer and far juicier, which was his pantheism, his sense of the divine permeating the universe, revealing itself in nature and in the human soul. And now here we are again, known for decades as a haven of starchy humanists, says Richard Wayne Lee. UU has in recent years assimilated a set of new movements. These include most visibly American Zen, New Age, Native American spirituality, and neo-paganism, the latter subsuming goddess spirituality and witchcraft. Richard Wayne Lee goes on to say, this analysis of UU's remarkable turn towards spirituality is based mainly on secondary data gathered by the author during and after a 2-year study of a UU church in Atlanta, Georgia. Which UU church you think he's talking about? I'll give you one guess. No. The vision that Richard Wayne Lee is putting out there is this: dry bones and starchiness on the one hand, and juicy spirituality on the other, right? In fact, he doesn't even call that spirituality, right? The juicy stuff gets to be spirituality. So he kind of establishes a polarity like that, and these two colliding. Now, that was back in 1995. But where are we now, do you think, 21 years later? Are the two still colliding? Now and into the future, I would like to shift metaphors. Dry bones versus juicy spirituality just feels bad to me. That statement of things feels bad to me. It makes it sound like one's wrong and the other's right. And I don't like that. I think both are valid. Something that is more cerebral, more internal, more quiet can very well be spiritual, just as an energetic air, fire, water, earth ritual can be spiritual, but spiritual in a different key. Now and into the future, I say it is far better to think in terms of vegetarians and carnivores. The spiritual hungers are equally strong, but the desired foods differ tremendously. Some people have experienced the efficacy of magic, M-A-G-I-C-K. Some people really have felt called by the goddess. The goddess is real for them, lives with them, into them. Some people really do speak to trees, and the trees do answer back, and they don't say you won't get it. They actually have conversations. And I will say, demographically, folks who are neo-pagan, for example, they've got big degrees. They're folks with PhDs and master's degrees. They're big readers. Demographically, that is what we see. So that's an interesting thing for us to know. There's that. And then, on the other hand, there's others for whom a walk in the woods, a simple walk in the woods, is enough. Reading the poetry of Mary Oliver, that wonderful nature poet, is enough. People are different, and in some cases, wildly so. As Unitarian Universalists, we have strange bedfellows experiences because we fling our doors wide open to them. We are curious. We want to pursue truth wherever truth comes from. And then the truth does come. It walks right through our door. Something truly diverse happens. It unfolds. And then we go, holy crap! That's what we do. Actually, I said holy moly right here, but I thought I'd tweak it up. Second service, you guys rock a little more. Truth walks into our space. Diversity happens, and we go, what the heck just happened? That's what we do. 1995 does not feel so far away after all. It just takes time to process and to integrate. As with individuals, so with institutions. That is my version of as above, so below. The pagans out there, maybe you didn't like that. I don't know. I will say this. There is nothing faddish about earth-centered spirituality and the need for humanity to be in right relationship with the rest of nature. There is nothing faddish about Jean-Jacques Rousseau or Henry David Thoreau or Ralph Waldo Emerson or that 20th century saint Rachel Carson, about whom I spoke this past January. There is nothing faddish about ancient pre-Christian traditions that folks today are drawing from because nothing they are finding in Christian times is feeding their souls. There is nothing faddish about the Native American sensibility that sings the rainstorm and the river are my brothers, the heron and the otter are my friends, and we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. Nothing is faddish about that at all. Our sixth source is perennial, and it is needed. Amen.